What's going on, good people? This video will cover how to get started with Bootstrap. As you know, this is continuing the series for Engineering Week, where I build out a updated version of my nsbe chapter website. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, thank you for joining and watching this video. If this is your first time to the channel, I ask that you please consider subscribing. If you've been to this channel before, you already know that I release new videos every week on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And on those Tuesday videos, we talk about technology. On Saturday, we do DIY projects. This week is a special week since it is Engineers Week. So I'll be doing videos all this week. So be sure to come back every day to check that out. All right, the first part I want to start with is setting up the theme for the website. But before I can do that, I actually need to clone the existing website to my computer. So I'm going to do all of the coding in Visual Studio Code. And what I actually need to do is to, let's see, open, I do not believe that I have it here. So if I come over to the source control, we'll do clone repository and need to get the repository URL, copy. All right, and drop that in up here in the command palette, and we'll just put it in the home directory. And so this may take a little bit of time to work on, but it's working. And what I've done in the previous video, I talked about having these issues here defined, and I've got them very high level, and I've done that on purpose. I don't want to have to create a lot of issues that I have to track. And pretty much this contains the scope of everything that I want to accomplish with this site. In addition, there may be some other items that I haven't thought of just yet, but for right now, this covers everything. Normally, if you're doing a website, you may list out a lot more, especially if this is your first time building a website. But because this is not my first time, this is a recurring thing, so I have no concerns with that. All right. So the copy of the repository completed successfully. As you see here, I have all of the files that currently exist on the server in my local machine here. And what I'm actually going to do is to go ahead and start out with a new branch, and we're going to call this, we're going to call it main. Or, well, no, let's not do that. So it is static. So I guess I'll go ahead and call it mkdocs because that is what I will be using. I need to get branch, create branch. There we go. And we'll call the branch name mkdocs. All right. And down here you see it says mkdocs as the branch name. And if I were to do a push, click OK, it's basically saying you don't have an upstream branch for this. Do you want to create one? So you wanted to tell it yes. All right. And let's close this and close that one. I'm not sure why it's modifying the extensions. All right, I have the terminal pulled up here in the bottom of Visual Studio Code. And what I want to do is to pretty much remove all of the Drupal specific files. And I want to keep the sites directory for the moment because I do believe there are pictures in that directory that I may need to use and migrate at some point. And so pretty much everything else that is in this directory. So we're going to do get rm-rf and use the wildcard for some of this stuff. But pretty much everything else in this directory will probably need to go. Let's see, I want to keep the robots.txt file. So I'm going to move the robots to that, and I think the remainder of the files, except the sites directory, can go. And so the reason I moved that particular file is so that I can use these wildcard extensions to, or use wildcards to be able to remove a number of files at once. So modules, not sure why it's so slow right now. Trying to type these, autocomplete these directories and star config. All right, now if I do ls, I have the CA NSB Junior directory, which I am not sure what is in this. So let me take a peek at that. Okay, so that has a bunch of files that I think I may need to keep. So I'm not going to remove that right away. All right, now I can move my robots.txt file back to its original file name. And we do get status. And you'll see there are a lot of files here. I'm actually going to, let me go ahead and open this in the actual terminal window. And you can see more output instead of that small space in Visual Studio Code. Again, I normally do this all within Visual Studio Code. That way I don't have to switch windows. But just to show you, it has captured all of the Drupal files that I've specified. So the text files that I don't need anymore or anything like that nature. All right. And so if I do get status, I got everything. So I can do get commit. I have a issue opened, so this will be, I'm going to associate all of this type of stuff with item 24 or issue 24. All right, so let me go back to Visual Studio. So number 24 and removed Drupal files. All right. And so this list on the right should refresh. Maybe, maybe not. If I do ls, all right, so let's go back over here and not sure why it didn't refresh. Let's hit the refresh button. There we go. All right. So we have that, all of those files removed. We have a couple of htaccess files for development and production, and we also have a get ignore file. So this backup get ignore file can be removed. I'm gonna keep the htaccess for development and production for the sake of having it. I'm not sure what, oh, so this too is a Drupal file, so we'll remove that edit config. And we'll keep the htaccess files. Opening the robots.txt file. I don't believe I need all of this. So what I'm going to do is change this so that it does not do all of that. All right. And so what I'm going to do is actually just tell it to allow and do the entire website. I am probably going to come back and update this at some point to better refine it. But for right now, allowing the entire website is sufficient in my opinion. All right, and so if we go over to the version control, make it refresh, which I'm not sure why it's not refreshing on its own. I want to stage these two files to item 24, removed Drupal and backup files. And then I want to stage this one, also attribute it to item 24 and updated robots.txt. All right, that should be sufficient. Now, if we come back over here, so in my terminal, I already have the mkdocs installed on my system. If you don't have it on your system, you can go to the mkdocs website and it has instructions there to set things up. So I need to run mkdocs new and I want to put it in the current directory. So going to do mkdocs new with a period at the end. And if I refresh my directory structure over here, you now see a mkdocs YAML file as well as a docs folder with a index MD file, which stands for Markdown. And so if I do mkdocs serve from this location, it should start a browser, which it will start the process, which it has. And here is the new website. So what I'm going to do is to leverage the existing website for the content for the new website, as well as build out the structure at the same time. I also want to set up a theme. So what I'm going to do is go to bootstrap.com, and they have examples on the website. And which you can do a number of things. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll pick one template and use that as a starting point, and then based off that starting point, copy from some of the other templates. So I kind of like want a carousel, or let's say I want a carousel on the home page, but then want, just a plain white page on the other pages. So I might copy this template to start with, remove the stuff that I don't want, and then put in the stuff that I do want. So I'm thinking I want the Jumbotron as the home page. All right, so yeah, all right. So I'm gonna go back. All right, so examples, you can download the examples, which is what I will do. And it's going to give you a zip file. Open. Okay. And I want the Jumbotron example. So I'm going to copy it. You could do an extract, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to do a copy. And, well, wait. Let's just extract that one thing into my directory. And I'm going to extract it here. Close. And so if I go back to Visual Studio Code and refresh, I have my Jumbotron with the Jumbotron CSS. And it is referring to the assets directory, so I also need to extract that. And we'll put that inside of the Jumbotron and close. And let's see what else is referring to. I believe that's it. So Jumbotron here. Okay, cool. So we're good. So what I'm going to do now is to rename this directory. And usually I rename the theme directory to the name of the website with the word theme in it. So in this case, it would be nsbe-mp theme. And then I want to create a CSS directory, and then also create a JavaScript directory. And so the CSS, well, I guess I could remove that and just move this one up, since I forgot about that part because it already comes with that. All right, so I want to replace that, and then my JavaScript, I want it to move up here and replace that. All right, and then we got these two solid SVGs. I'll move them for the time being, and then I can get rid of this assets folder. All right, and then it moved this Jumbotron CSS into the CSS directory as well, and should be good to go. I'm going to also create one more directory now that I think about it, and we'll call it images. And these will be the images that are specifically associated with the theme, not so much the pages themselves. All right, and that should be everything. So next we'll have to update the references in the HTML file or template. So that is CSS, as well as this one being CSS. And are there any other references in here? I think there was one at the bottom somewhere here. So let's close this terminal window right quick. Yeah, so we got this one here. Should just be JS, starting with the leading slash. Does it have slim? Or maybe not. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else in this. This JS. No. Okay. Assets, this JS, Bootstrap, vendor. Okay. And this one here, you have to also update the path. The rest of that looks good, so I'm going to run from the command palette, do format of this template, and as you see, it reset up the HTML here. And I can actually move this. I want to create another CSS file and just name it the name of the website with .css at the end. And so this embedded CSS, usually I take that and drop that in here and also format it so that it's done correctly. And then that way you get rid of all of the inline styles, and some of these comments, they can go as well. And then save that on the page. The jQuery and scripts all look good. I noticed there is looks like there's a missing body tag down here. So let's drop that in. All right. I don't know if it was missing from the original template or script or not, but that's not a good thing. So I want to drop that back in there. And then let's see, is there anything else in here? I think that's it. All right. And so the next part of this is going through and changing this so that it meets the template values. I'm going to keep this Bootstrap template open, or examples open rather, because there may be some stuff in there that I actually do need to copy. Like if I see something over here, I can just open it instead of having to download it again. All right, going back to Visual Studio. All right, so what I'm going to do next is to check the configuration. And so the configuration is very simple. So comparing the configuration to the current site. So we have NSBE Montgomery Professionals up here. So I'm going to do the same thing. And then site description is one value. All right, let's see. So I have another site that I've built in the past, which is my site actually. And what I'm going to do is to reference that for the configuration file, because it has pretty much a similar configuration in here. And just copy a few items out of here I think that I need. All right, so I know I need those. Need the repository information, the theme, and let's see what else. Also plugins and some of the other items down here at the bottom. I want to minify markdown extensions and use directory URLs. Let's see. Don't need that because I'm going to do some hard coding of the template values in there so that when it runs that it populates that information in. And I don't need built-in search. In the worst case, I may leverage the Google search to be able to crawl the website to if a search function is needed, but I'm not going to use the mkdoc search, in part because I'm not familiar with how to use it, and trying to get it to work the way I think I exactly want it to work might actually cause problems. All right, so the repository URL, need to update this. And the repo name is GitHub, remote name is origin, and the branch that I want to deploy the website to will be called website. And we'll cover this later in the series when I get to the part about doing the automated build and deploy. All right. So we have the description, so I can remove that line. And I'm going to change this to the appropriate copyright. And I may make this date dynamic. That way I don't have to come back and update it each year. Yeah, so we'll put that there for now. And actually I'll take out the site author attribute, so that way I don't have to worry about it. And then we'll save this, and then we'll also go ahead and do, I have a Minify plugin already installed. And so what it will do is minify the HTML, the CSS file. And so you see that here where it takes out all the spacing that is not necessary, as well as the line returns, and make that file as small as possible. And so I'll come back to this particular, back to the template, do /CSS, and reference that minified file, and style sheets. And then I also need to do the same thing for the Jumbotron CSS. It by default will not reference that, but it needs to. And where's the Jumbotron? So we'll go ahead and update that and minify that file and refresh, and there we have it. And so the minified file is that. And really the Jumbotron could be moved into my other CSS file, but I'm not going to do that just yet for the sake of not confusing everyone with this. All right. The next part is to work on the metadata up here at the top of the page. So I have the description, and I also want this to be dynamic based upon the page that is being presented. So I'm going to hard code some values here. So config dot, I guess I can go ahead and put site author in here too. That way, if the name changes in the future, that this will be updated as well. Because we have had one name change in the group previously, and a lot of the organization had to rename their groups because of the restructuring of the organization. So it wasn't the easiest thing to have to do, but it had to be done. And so that meant buying new domain names and so forth. Do I see that for happening in the future? No. But is it possible? Yes. And so that's why I'm going to go ahead and do it that way. All right. Coming back to my existing site, I'm going to pull up the theme that I created for it, because I set things up in a way where I could potentially use them in the future for like purposes like this, so that if there are usage scenarios where this could be dropped in and reused, and that I would have it. And so I don't think I need the reCAPTCHA. I need any other stuff down here? I don't believe so. And so I have a lot of the stuff that I think I would need to get started. Let's drop that. Really probably need to take from here to here. Let's see. Did I copy that stuff at the top of the file? I did. Okay. All right. So to run through all of these meta tags right quickly. So we have the organic groups locale. So this is in the United States. The name of the site, which we'll get from the configuration file, which is the mkdocs.yaml file. And the Twitter card, Twitter site, and Twitter creator. So I need to update this to not be me, but to the group's social media, which is nsbe-mp. And the description will be taken from the page and the page metadata specifically. And if not, it will default to the website's description. The author will be taken from the page, and if not, it will default to the site's author. The title, depending on a combination of things, will either be the page title, and the site configuration. If there's an image, you will use that as the image graphic. If there are keywords, you will use those. The meta type will be, by default, we'll just go with whatever specified on the page, and if not, it will be website. If the meta for robots is specified on the page, we'll go with that. If not, you will do index and follow, and the canonical page URL, we'll pull that from the page.canonical URL attribute and format it in a URL for the website. We do not have YouTube videos on this particular site, so take that tag out. I will put in Google Analytics, and I need to add an item here that will contain that information. So let's call it Google Analytics and do single quotes, and I'll come back in a later point and add that information in. And because of that, since I don't have that information readily available, I can actually go ahead and create a new issue and mention to add Google Analytics information, which I think is already existing on the current site. So I would just need to find that information on the current site. If not, I would have to go into the Google Analytics console or search engine console. I forgot which one they call it now, and be able to pull that information. But because that value is there and I've created an issue for it, I know that it still needs to be done. All right, let's see, canonical. So I already have a canonical tag up here, so I can remove that one. My CSS, I don't want to open that. It's down here. If you want to, you can specify the type as type text/CSS. Some people still do this, some people don't. You can still do it. I do not believe it's mandatory for it to be done this way, but I guess it's a best practice to specify what this is over here. All right, and the last thing I think I need to do, okay, so I've already updated the theme for the site. So if I come down here to the terminal, looks like I got some errors here, which is not good. And all right, so I don't have a main template, so I need to come back to my other website, and I'm literally going to copy the text for this main file. Because what mkdocs does is it looks for a main.html file as the template, and then your main HTML, basically, as you see here, is extending the base HTML, and really all your content is in the base HTML. So I need to rename index.html to base, and it may or may not detect that. Doesn't look like it has. All right, so we're going to restart that server and see if all comes back up good. All right, so it looks like we're good on there. So if we come back to template here and refresh, voila. So we have our Bootstrap theme. Nothing in here in particular has been implemented yet. We do have our website title here, which is being pulled from the configuration. So the next part is to continue on to customizing this template. All right, so let's move that terminal out the way. And the first thing we want is to put the name of the organization here. So site.name, put a space there to make sure that's consistent. And as you see, the name here has been updated. And because we are bootstrapping this entire website, you can do font, I believe it's font bold to make that bigger or bolded. And this may or may not, sometimes I may have the wrong class. All right, there it is. So font weight bold. I typed font bold by mistake. But there you have it. So there's that. And then I'm also come down here to the footer. So move that terminal out the way. Go away. And so we'll put the site name. And that's actually config.sitename. All right. And so come down here. So we have that there. And I actually want to, we're just going to change this. I have a copyright value in here in this here. So really I could, you have two ways to do it. You could either hard code it or you can put it in the configuration. And so I'm actually going to copy this for the time being, because that may be something different in the future. And I want to have that there so that nobody has to come into HTML to make those adjustments. And because like I mentioned earlier, that while I work in IT, the people that may be maintaining this website in the future do not necessarily work in IT. So they need to be able to make simple changes without having to know how to go in and learn how to write code and all those type of other things that are sometimes frequently necessary to be able to complete a given task. All right, so that is the footer. And for right now, I can go back over here to the configuration and put the current year, which at the time of this recording is 2020. And as you see, the copyright has updated accordingly, and I can move that around left, right, center, whatever the case may be at any point. So I want to keep this Jumbotron here, and I actually want to put a image or something on this Jumbotron. And so here's the Jumbotron, and because this is a static website, I want this Jumbotron to only show up when you are on the homepage. And the way to do that I have found was to make some conditional statements. And so using my existing site, I have a conditional statement in here somewhere. So you want to get the page URL and basically compare it to what it currently is. And so if copy and paste that in with the bracket parentheses, so if page URL is literally / which refers to the home page, then I want to display this Jumbotron at the top of the page, and I need to close that with the end if, like that. Now, how do I know this? Well, this is based off the Jinja 2. The MKDocs uses the Jinja 2 templating engine, and this is how you format the information on a MKDocs website. You can look up Jinja 2 online and find their documentation for how to do conditional statements like this for the various pages. I know a lot of people, sometimes they like to split out their templates into multiple files. Ideally, I try to keep my template as one large file. That way it is, for me, it's more concise to be able to manage, since everything is in the same place, instead of remembering the 5, 10, or even 20 files that some templates have with MKDocs of where everything is. But again, there is no rule to that. It's just a, some call it a best practice. Some say, you know, it's just what you want. All right, so that for some reason is not working, and I need to figure that out right now. So let's see. So I actually used the wrong thing. So if page is homepage is what I should have used in this condition. So save that and come back. There we go. So we have it. And if I create another page, which I am going to have to do right now. So we're going to create an about.md file. There we go. And so if I come back over here and do /about, as you see, the Jumbotron is no longer there. We just have the headings, which are down in the bottom of said page. So I need to come back to Visual Studio. And let's see, I don't need to edit. I think I can actually go ahead and close the configuration file for now, because I don't need to make any adjustments to that. And I'm going to actually take out these header items here, because I don't want to use those on the page. And there we go. All right, so if I come back to my site, as you see, I have no content, which is what I am looking for. All right, so I want to put some content back in. So do H1 with the page title as the variable. And then I also want to do page content. So we'll do page.content as a variable as well. And if it refreshes, it should not show anything, which is what I expect. I need to, let's go put some lorem ipsum if I pronounced that correctly, on this page. All right, lorem ipsum. So I only really need just generate something. All right, so I need a paragraph just to be able to see what I'm doing. And at some point, this will actually become actual text. All of this can, well, that can stay, but I need something for this about page. All right, so I now have that, as you see, is spanning the entire width. I do have the mobile friendly, so if I snap this over to the left, and it does resize, as you see, according to the width of the browser. So I don't have to worry about that. That's a benefit of using Bootstrap, is you don't have to figure out that whole browser resizing thing. It just does it. All right, so to replicate this up here, which I commented out because I no longer want those things, at least the headers, that is. So I'm going to go ahead and create container, if I can type that correctly. And I'm going to put that back down. There is the div. Yeah, so the div is there. So if I come back to my page, now my page is resized appropriately to everything being in the center. I am not sure if I want to use a sidebar on this, and I've kind of thought about it, looked at some other sites, and some other sites within the organization do not have a sidebar. They just have single columns for their content. Some do have a wider column, like a 8 column and then a 4 column for the sidebar. So I may do something similar, or I may do a 9 and 3, but either way, whatever I do will equal up to 12, which is that standard for Bootstrap. All right. And if you ever have some issues like reading your HTML or whatever, just open the command palette with Control-Shift-P, and then hit Format Document, or you can use the shortcut, which is here, Control-Shift-I. I have a tendency just to open the command palette and type it in and go from there. For me, it's a relatively easier thing to do than that. All right, so I'm trying to line some things up right quick to make sure, because it looks like I have this div here by itself, which I do. So actually I need to lose that div. And if I go back to my page, yes, so that's there. And I want to put some padding above this. So we're going to do a class with a PT of 3, because I don't want it to be smack right up against that black bar. And speaking of that nav bar, or the black bar, I want that bar to be, we're going to kind of keep it similar to the existing website, which is this right here. And so I want that to be red. And so I will going to set this here with a, actually that's the wrong place. So we want nav bar. We'll go with BG danger. And I think that is a little bit too bright. I want to try to stick with the NSB colors. And so we can do an expect element. This is actually not a NSB color, but it is a more pronounced red that is a little bit more acceptable than the danger color red that is already in there. So I don't want to use that. Trying to get this inspect element of the, there we go. So okay, we can go with this RGB here. All right, and in my personal style sheet, we're going to do a, I believe it's a dot root, and trying to remember how to do, there is a way that you can do CSS colors, or CSS variables. I don't see that here. No, okay. All right, so let me go back to my code from another site. And I know that you're thinking, like, he's referencing a lot of his existing code. Yes, because a lot of times when you write code the first time, you don't necessarily need to go back and retype that code again from scratch. You can honestly reuse what you already have. And I know what you're thinking, why is that the case? And that's because when you reuse what you already have, you become more proficient at coding because you're now coding something that you already wrote and that you know already works versus trying to write something from scratch and that thing not working and causing a problem. All right, so I've added my nav bar color here. So I can do one of two things. I can add a class to my CSS file, or I can try to overwrite one of these classes here in this CSS file. And you have to remember to make sure that you put the Bootstrap CSS file first and any other CS files after that, because cascading style sheets means just as it says, the last one will overwrite the first one. So the custom style sheet that I'm writing will overwrite this first one. And so I want to do nav bar here. And so I'm going to actually just call it the nav bar class. And for background color, I'm going to do var, which stands for variable, and nav bar. I may need to make that one word, nav bar color. There. So that way that is not as confusing. And then we'll update the minify version of that file and refresh the template. Refresh the page. No. What is, oh, because I have in my, here I have danger overriding that. So let's see. All right, so that did not work like I thought it would. All right, so we're going to do we'll call it class nav bar color. That, yeah, and then come back over here to the base, and we'll do nav bar color as that color. And if we go back to the browser and refresh, it is not pulling in. Oh, maybe because I need to, whoops, do a wrong shortcut. So if I minify, I should have, yeah, so my navbar color is down there. And that should be working unless I somehow mess something up. Okay, so that should be good to go. Refresh. It is not. Okay, so let me, gonna comment this out for the second and remove this. And for development purposes, I'm gonna use the actual file instead of the minified file. And because it's slash, should be slash CSS slash theme. Okay, refresh. All right, so let's go back forward and view the page source to see what it is pulling. So if I do this, do I get a CSS file? Yes, I do. All right, and so my navbar color, background color is navbar color. I don't know if that's confusing or not. So let's change that to navbar red. We'll change this one to navbar red. Shouldn't be confusing, but still not sure why it's not working. Then also need to come back here and do, so let's add the navbar color to that. Okay, nav.navbar color. So if we refresh, we don't have the bar there, but the text is still there. Not sure what is happening. And so sometimes you do have these issues where certain things do not do as you expect them to do. So got a class with dots and var. Did I miss something? Double dash, bar red. I think my root is incorrect. So my root is incorrect. It's supposed to have a colon in front instead of a dot. All right, so now if I do this, there we go. All right, so we now have our red at the top up here, which is what I was trying to achieve. So now we can close all of these extras. I don't think I need any more blank page text. Well, actually, come think of it, I think I do. So I'm going to copy a little bit more of this page in an effort to get some scrolling on this page going. And worst case scenario, copy it 2 or 3 times. All right, so this should be more than enough text here. Yeah, and so I'm going to do the same thing on the index page. All right, and save. And so if I come back to the home page, which I need to, navigation does not work right away. All right, and so I have my content here and everything is working. I also need to put a conditional statement in here to check to see if the title is on the as a meta attribute to not show it. All right. So we have that one going. All right, so next, let's go ahead and wire up this nav bar to the home page. So we have the home link. So I literally just changed that to /. That way it refers to the home page. A lot of times I will take out this active. For the sake of right now, though, I'm just going to comment it out. Let's see, it has a drop down. I don't think I want the drop down here. So I'm also going to comment that drop down out as well. So there we go. All right, so the home is there. Actually, I'm going to comment this one out too for the sake of demonstration. And then do class nav item and do a /. And so if you've never used / before, basically it refers to the root, and that's how you avoid having to type in the homepage URL. That's my personal preference, but I know some people don't like it. They rather have the full URL there. I put the / to start from the root and then put the remainder of the path. That way, when you migrate from environment to environment, you don't have to worry about changing any configuration values or anything of that nature, because it will automatically do that. So if I refresh, it's not showing me my link. Oh, because I don't have any link text, which would make sense. And then I also need to have the class of nav link here, and there is my link, and I actually want that to be white. So what I'm going to do is to overwrite that and do .nav link, and I want to have white as a variable. And is that right? 1, 2, 3. I think I'm missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. And then I want to have color as a variable of white. There we go. Now that you're thinking, why didn't I just put white down here as put the hex value of white down here instead of putting that into a variable, and then that variable just says the same thing? And the reason being is because I try to keep my colors together. That way, if I want to change one thing that, as I see the page, if I want to change one thing on it, like the colors, for instance, I have one place to go to instead of multiple places, because as I build this out, there will be more places in here that will have different colors and whatnot. And I don't want to have 5 different places that have different colors in here. Instead, I want to have one place that has one color. And it looks like it's not taking too well to that nav link. So what I'm going to do is to do text-white. There may be a class already defined as text-white. Okay, that's not doing as expected either for some reason. Color, text color. All right. Oh, I need to add the class to here. So text white. There we go. All right. And so we have the about page. So we can navigate back and forth right now between the index page and about pages. And as you see on the index page, I get my Jumbotron. This Jumbotron can have a photo, it can have a different color background, whatever the case may be, with the text on the front. And I may put a photo here. I may just leave it with a different color background. I'm not sure as this time. But there you have it. Next thing I'm gonna do is get rid of this search bar. For right now, I'm going to comment it out, which is simple. It's just coming over here and hitting the shortcut for commenting. And so now it is gone, as you see on the right over here. All right, so we have the about. Now, depending on your website, you can use the configuration to populate the rest of the menu bar. I personally like to just go ahead and hard code the values in here because most of the time the menu bar, at least in my particular setups, are not going to change that much, if at all. And so usually you have an about page, a contact page, and if you don't have an about and contact page on your website, you need to have one. And the reason being is because Google will actually penalize your site for not having those two pages on it. I found that out through reading some articles about Yoast SEO, well, on Yoast SEO, as well as search engine optimization, and what's the other site? His name is Moz, M-O-Z. And so they mentioned that was part of one of their Google's algorithm updates, that if you don't have those items there, that they will penalize your site and lower the SEO ranking of it. All right, some other items that I want to also have up here at the top. So I have about, contact, and I might actually move the contact to the bottom, depending on how many items I have up here. But I do want to have membership. And these pages don't exist just yet, but they will in due time. And the footer, so what I'm gonna do is this in the footer. So I'm actually going to, so we put the copyright first, and between each item in the copyright, going to add a link. So we're going to do /contact here and call it contact. So if you scroll to the bottom, yep, we have a contact URL. And so I also need to add class text black, or maybe it's dark. I think it's dark. Yeah, so text dark, and you see there's that. And I could actually create a class called text black, which I think I'm gonna go ahead and do. So text black, color, and create a variable black. All right, and then up here at the root element, black. There we go. And so come back to here. We'll change this to, that's not what I meant to hit, black. And if we refresh the page, so now you have your copyright, and then you have your link there. And to make this stand out a little bit more, I'm actually going to emphasize that part of the copyright. There we go. And so that way you know there's a difference between this and this. All right. So that is that. And all right, so we have our 2 pages with some additional links. Coming back to the previous site, so membership will have a list of information on it, as well as how to join. We also want to have programs that I want to highlight in the Nav Bar. And the reason I want to highlight those programs, because we do have some recurring programs, some such as our nsbe Junior, as well as our engineering day that we do. And so to put those there, and I guess I could also do a donate link as well. The events and the photos will be redirected to another site, so I can go ahead and drop those in. So events, actually that should be linking to a different page. So events, for right now I'm just gonna put a £sign there, that way it doesn't blow up when I click it. As also the membership. I got membership, events, programs, photos. So I guess the photos could go to somewhere else. And then at the bottom here, I can put our social media pages. So I'm going to add those here in the bottom. So yeah, Instagram. And for links that go to another site, I always make them open in a new window. And the reason being is because that way you know that you're leaving that particular site. Oftentimes when you just take them to that next page without warning, they're not sure that they're, or they may not necessarily be aware that you're about to take them to a new site. But if you open a new tab, they know that, okay, this is a new site from the previous site. And it also gives them the option to be able to come back to your site if they did not want to navigate to that new site. All right, so I added the social media stuff down here at the bottom. I also need to add the class that I had here as well. So I'm just going to come back in and copy that. I'm actually going to put this class stuff at the beginning. Oops, not that far beginning. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and move this one over. There we go. All right, and then I'm gonna run the formatter on that, and that aligns everything the way it should be. And if I come back to here, as you see, I have all of those links down here at the bottom. I will be changing the color of that because I don't like that hover to be that color. And I also want a little bit more padding between the bottom of the footer and the bottom of the screen. As you see here, this is barely above the bottom of the screen. And I know on some devices, they may not necessarily give you that much space from there in the bottom. So I want to be able to pull that up a little bit more. And if I want to do it even more, I can do margin bottom of 4. And that'll give me even more space from the very bottom of the page, which is kind of ideal of what I want. All right, so there's that. All right, so now that since I'm looking at it, we can go ahead and change this link text for when someone mouses over the link. So I'm going to go ahead and do a hover action, and I want to use the color of the Nav Bar red to highlight that. And so now when I mouse over, my link turns red instead of the default color, which is, I believe for this particular browser, is blue. Or it may be in the style sheet that it defaults to blue, but now that I'm overwriting it, as you see, it is red. All right, and even further, if I want to, I can even do some text transformation and do we call it uppercase. I think it's what it is. So when you mouse over, it changes the case of the text. I don't know, that looks slightly annoying, but maybe I'll just not do that. Let's do a font weight instead, and we'll change it to bold. So I think that's a little bit more subtle. Yeah, that's a little bit more subtle than changing the case of the text. Although changing the case of the text would make it more pronounced, but doing that is pretty sufficient. All right, and I also need to check up here. Okay, so that only applies to, okay, so it does bold these up here too, which is fine, I think. So it may need to hammer that down a little bit finer. So I probably just need to do so we'll do a footer class. Yeah, so let me add a footer class. And then in my CSS, actually, I'm gonna add the footer class to the paragraph. There we go. All right, and so in my CSS, what I'm going to do is call that footer class, so p footer with a greater than arrow, and then the a hover, and that should carry that so that it does not apply to these up here, which it doesn't, but it does apply to these down here, which it does. All right, and If I want, I can be a little bit more particular about the links on the page itself and actually underline those links that have text, or like these links here are not underlined by default, but if I want to underline those, I can. What I want to do is let's go back to the template. And so we have a div, we have the Jumbotron, we have the container, and so what I want to do is do main dot, let's see. So I'm going to do main, and also want to do, well, really you can do this, we'll call this body as that container, and then we have that. Okay, so coming back to the CSS, so if we want to underline the links, so we do div.body, and then we also want to do p.footer a, right? Yeah, p.footer, and that one here, also with the anchor tag. And so you want to do text, text decoration, and it's underlined. There we go. All right, so now we have our links underlined as you see here. And if I were to put a link in the body of the page, which I need to go back and actually edit. So we'll just do a href, send it to nowhere, and close that out. All right, so we're on the about page. Now we got to find that link. So that link is right here, okay? And so as you also see, that link is blue, so we need to address that particular item as well. And want to have the links on the body of the page as well as there to be black. So we'll do var black and call in a variable there. And so as you see now, our links are black. So it blends in fairly well. The only way you know it's a link is if you see it underlined. You could add more decoration to it, such as bold or even changing the color. I really don't want to change the color too much because then it may stand out, too far. But I think underlining may be enough for this. If not, then I will change the color to like a red or something else of that nature that makes it stand out a little bit better. All right, so I think we have enough information up here at the top. In the worst case scenario, I could move some of this information down to the footer, but I want these are the main links that people will navigate when they come to the site, not necessarily in that order. I actually want to move the about page to the end, so let me go ahead and do that, because that's in my opinion, some of the least important information. That would be the page with like the officers and about the chapter and so forth. Whereas like the membership, you want people to join, so you put that up front. Programs, you want people to find that information immediately as well, so you put that up front, as well as the events and photos. Even though they take you to a different site, you still want that to be more prevalent over the about page and so forth. I have the contact and social media stuff down here at the bottom. I think that's sufficient. I will have another where I know I will, that will link to the national level of the organization. So let's see. So we have our links here. So what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and create another paragraph. And so what do I have over here? So on this site, we actually have columns with that piece of information here, and I kind of could do something similar. And then we also have links here. We even have a phone number here that can be clicked straight, and as you see here, it wants to call, but obviously you can't call with from the computer. The way I can't call from this one. So yeah, social media, other avenues as well. We have our links to our national and regional level, as well as some other resources and programs. So what I'm going to do is this. So I'm actually going to, so this will close, not head, come on. All right, so I'm going to close that out. I'm going to move that copyright to the very bottom. And we're going to have the contact links and so forth on the first row down here at the bottom. Also want to text center this item because I want it to be centered. Yep, that works. And next we're going to do the national and regional links. So I'm going to do a class. I should not have to do text black now, so I'm actually not going to do class. And then I'm come to the existing site. So we'll start here and copy the links and paste those in with a target to a new window. Again, mentioning what I mentioned before about knowing that you are being sent to a new site. All right, so let's check that first link. And so that first link is good. And what am I missing on here? So I'm missing the opening paragraph tag here, class footer. And then I'm missing a class footer here. Now that link should be black, and it is. Good. All right, so now I can continue on with adding the other items. You could use a bulleted list here and have it styled to go horizontally, and I might actually come back and do that with one of these Nav Bar classes. Yeah, so let me do that because that would probably be easier than doing these paragraphs. And which means I'll have to go back and change my CSS as well. Okay, I think that should be fine. All right, so we're going to do a unordered list. Put that down here, and then list item, and close said list item. All right, so you have a bullet. So there is a class that is so you got a not that item. Let's go reference my existing code yet again. I know it's pretty common, but that's why you write code, and ideally you keep track of the code that you have already written so that if you need to use it again in the future, you don't have to create it from scratch. You just go back and copy and paste what you have already used. That's a great thing. All right, so the list item, so I need a, did I put that on the UL? Yes, that's on the UL. So class, and paste that there. And then we're going to have a class of nav item. All right, and if I come back over here, so that's correct. Let me add one more link here. So we're going to copy this one and going to drop it in here. So li class nav item a href with a target of blank, and we'll call it nsbe professionals. All right, and if I come back over here to site, all right, so my links are not in line. I need to copy, it's another class I think that will make them, yeah, list inline item. So let's put that there and that there. And now let's check. All right, so now my items are in line with each other. And if I come back over to here, so we do class footer. All right, and let's do format right quick because that looks a little weird. Okay, so I'm going to do that and this. All right, so I think, there we go. And bring that back. There they go. All right, so close that, save, and there you have it. All right, so we have the list linked. So now we got to go back to the CSS, and I took the p footer. So let's add a class here. So we got a UL, and we got a UL footer class with nav item dot nav list item dot a. All right, and so our page links now should be black, which they are, so that's good. All right, and as you can see, they also work as well, so that's also good. Now I need to go back and I need to remove this since I won't be using it anymore, and go ahead and convert the other list here to same format. So I'm just going to take that out, put that there, and close each of these items here. All right, and remove that one. Wrong tag. And nav item, li. There we go. All right, so we do format right quick. As you see, it corrected that. Put a little bit of space right there so that it's a little bit more readable. And if you come back here, so now it is spaced out accordingly and everything is linked together the way it should. So you see our links look correct based upon mousing over and looking over in the bottom right corner, and looks like they go to where it needs to, and the contact is doing as the same as well. All right, coming back to the remaining links on this page. So copy, and we'll just keep adding on to here. So class, really just copy that, copy this one, and copy this one. Whoops. Put it on the line by itself. Be sure to do that part. All right, and so here's a cheating kind of way to do this. So you go to the end, copy that there, and go to the end here, mouse down, beginning line, got that one in. Might have to do a little bit of typing, as you see, but nonetheless it works. Boom, got the next line. Target, shift blank. All right, whoops. And I messed up my copy paste. There you go. All right. And put the last one there. Cool. All right, so if I come back to sites, I don't have URLs, which it should not have. So I need to fill those in. We'll just do PDC to see what it says for right now. That link may be too long. All right, so as you see, we have that here. The careers is, wow, in the wrong spot. All right, so save. There we go. So it's now reorganized. And if we format our document to make that a little bit readable, there we have it. I'm gonna actually go ahead and put these LIs on another line by themselves. And yeah, that looks good. So make this so that it's not so long, because I actually need to change this to region, spell it out. All right, so PDC, careers, and so forth. Cool. All right, and all right, so one more thing that we have our programs. I also need to do this telephone link thing, so I'm gonna just copy that as is. And So I'm gonna put that up here as a link. Yeah, because I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So copy, paste, and I'm actually going to move that up. Copy, paste, move that down, and do a href, not an anchor tag with an href. Excuse me on that one. And nope, why did it copy? I guess because I didn't have the right thing there. All right, and so now if we come back over here, that works. And so to do a telephone number, you just do tel as the prefix, and then you put the phone number afterwards. Formatting, usually most phones are smart enough to figure out the formatting that parentheses and dashes don't matter, and we'll strip those out before you actually make that call. I'm not sure how this works on iPhones, but I do know from as being an Android user that an Android phone has the intelligence to remove that out and only actually submit the numerical values that are in that phone number link. So this helps you out from a let's say I'm looking at this on my phone and I want the user to be able to contact me directly from the website. They can just tap this link. This link will call up the phone application, like the phone dialer application on their phone with the link already, with the phone number already populated in. And then all they got to do is hit call, send, whatever the case may be. Instead of the way that some sites are set up, they'll put the phone number on there, but they won't give you a link to that phone number. And so you literally have to copy the number, paste the number, and then send. And that is a little bit inconvenient. While it's doable, it's inconvenient. Sometimes even I personally, if I run across a website that's set up in that way, or a restaurant or something of that nature, I may not even go to them because of the fact I have to copy and paste a number. And it's like, dude, you don't have a better web designer that knows how to do this thing? So, but that's just a personal preference. I know everybody's not the same when it comes to that regard. All right, now that we have that in place, so we have our text, we have our headings. I know you're saying, well, what about the images? Well, don't have the images yet. Those will come in a little bit later. So what I wanted to do, at least get the layout set up and to be straight and running. As you see, if we resize our window over here and we get the what they call the hamburger menu, combo box, whatever. Some people call it various things, but you get the menu link thing here, and you can click it and get all the other options that you see here. And of course, if you hit the title, it takes you back to the home page with that resized Jumbotron and the text on said homepage. And down here at the bottom, you still get all the links. They are resized according to the screen, as you can see. All right. Next item on the list. So I'm going to go ahead and commit the changes that I have made thus far. But before I do that, I'm actually going to do a little bit of cleanup. So I'm going to remove this comment. Well, I think I probably need to, no, I'll take that comment out and some of this white space, and also do formatting on the document to make sure everything is aligned accordingly. I will leave this link here as the footer down here at the very bottom in a paragraph tag because it's not necessarily a list. It is just a single item. And the commented code, I know some people like, don't ever commit your commented code, but in some cases, I actually prefer to leave that commented code in because I may actually need to reference it in the future. So I leave it in until I know for sure that I no longer need it, and then I take it out. And that'll be the same for up here as well. Actually, I don't think I need any of this anymore because I'm not going to do any drop downs on the page. I could, but personally, I don't like to have my nav bar have drop downs like that. I know some people, they're all for a drop down, but for me, simplicity is the best thing there is. All right, and I have 2 head tags. That should not be the case. I wonder how that happened. All right, so good thing I did scroll all the way back up because yeah, I would have gotten some weird errors on that one. Let's see, is there a closing head tag? Yes, there is. Okay. which doesn't make sense. All right, so let's format that again. All right, so the format document does help you out, or at least it does help me out in some situations, because as you notice, before I did this format document, the head was indented over a little bit more. And then once I got to the top, I realized, oh, there's 2 head tags, which makes sense. So try to format your document. It'll help you out. If you're writing websites in Visual Studio, you usually don't have this problem, because as you type, it most of the time will format the document on its own as you type commands, but sometimes you have to intentionally tell it to format the document because it's not sure how to format it, so it just quits formatting and will wait on you to give it the okay to do another format again. So just keep that in mind. In addition, having your document formatted will make it a little bit more readable. Now, in some situations, like with this one, it does not, even though there's an if condition here, normally when you have an if condition, everything contained in that if condition is indented over. But because this is a mixing of 2 different languages, it doesn't quite understand what this is. And so it does not indent it like it should, or like it would in any other program. And, you can try to figure out why it's not doing that by going in the configuration and so forth, but I didn't bother doing that. I just realized, okay, that's there. In the worst case scenario, I need to space out my code so that I can clearly see that that's an if condition there, or a Jinja 2 tag instead of an HTML tag, so that I know, hey, you need to pay more attention to this particular item here, instead of just glazing over it. All right, and this commented code, I'm going to, like I mentioned, leave it here for now, because of the fact I don't need to minify the file right away, and especially every time I update the file, you got to minify it, and I don't want to have to go through that. So, but ultimately, at the end of, once I get done writing all of the code, the minified file will be used, and the non-minified file will be left in version control, but it will not be referenced on the page for the sake of SEO improvements and so forth. That will wrap things up for this video. I know it was a lot. I know it was long, but this is going to be a fairly long process, and trying to do it all in a reasonable time frame is going to take some time. But I want to show you everything from start to finish of how I go about redesigning and taking a website from a content management system over to a static website. If you have any questions, again, drop those down in the comment section below. I would like to hear from you. Also, again, if you're interested in this content, please be sure to subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below. Each week I come with new content, and technology is discussing technology is one of those content ideas. So if you have any questions, drop those down in the comment section below. And until next time, peace out.